Hi, and welcome to the ABSITE Smackdown podcast. Jessica and Colton sure are busy lately. Our co-hosts that you probably know from other episodes really are busy working on the ABSITE Smackdown Live conference. And one of the best parts about doing this work with the publisher is they let us put out so much free content. It has a lot of meaning for me. It has let me feel like I'm giving back and contribute. And today's one of those great days. Today, they're letting us share one of the videos from the live conference. All the video sessions are recorded. You probably know already, but in case you don't, the conference is being held in the evening, which is why Colton and Jessica have been so busy. They've been burning the midnight oil, getting the conference done. And there are a couple reasons why. One, a lot of staff say there's not that much education at night, or there's a danger that there's not that much education at night when we're on in the nighttime role or on call in the hospital. So the Project Smackdown team has tried to improve that by having this be the Absite Review Conference held at night. And again, all sessions are videotaped, so if you have to go, you have to be on call, you have to step away to do a consult, procedure, something like that, you can come back, the videos are right there. So again, today's one of my favorite days because they're allowing us to share as a podcast one of the recent talks from the conference. And the conference is going on right now. We started it up recently. It goes again today and through tomorrow. And you'll see somewhere in here the editor's place a link. And also you can go to absitesmackdown.com and pick up a discounted ticket. So in the interest of getting as much free content out there, let's get to this talk that they had me do for the conference called Facts About the Absite. That's a good orientation to what the Absite is, sort of what's on it, and some links to where you can go to get additional information, practice with the computer interface, and other useful things. So like we say on here, let's get to it.
Welcome to the Absite Smackdown podcast. We'll talk clinical scenarios, Absite facts, and interesting general surgery knowledge. Now, let's get to it.
All right, welcome to our next session. And this one's all about key facts about the Absite. Again, on a personal level, this is one of the talks I wish I would have had back when I was a resident. I may have told you before, or you may have read, back when I was a first-year resident, I didn't realize exactly the timing of when the Absite was given. I definitely didn't think to make sure I wasn't on call the night before the Absite. That would have had to have been done months in advance. There are a lot of facts I didn't know about the Absite. Many of you on the call are mid-level residents in the conference. It looks like across the streaming services, we have about 180 to 200 staff in the conference with us, about 20 on this platform. And it looks like most of you are mid-year residents. We do have some PGY1 colleagues here too. The reason I bring this up is some of this talk will be more useful for our PGY1 colleagues, but there's a substantial amount that I think would have even helped me as a PGY3 or above. And so with that, let's get to it with the next slide.
The Absite Smackdown podcast. Visit the Smackdown at absitesmackdown.com.
So you may know that the Absite was first administered on paper. That's back in my day when dinosaurs ruled the earth. And then eventually it changed substantially. For a while, there were two tests. There was a senior and junior test. The American Board of Surgery, the keepers of the American Board of Surgery in training, or sometimes called in-service exam, the Absite, they created a version of the test for each of these levels. Now, in 2014, the test came back together and was just one test again. And so, as you guys probably already know, we get this one test every year. There are about 250 multiple choice questions. And I used to be a program director, you may know, so I have a lot of kind of experience with timing of giving the test. The programs all get to sort of decide within a range of when exactly they give it. So that means it's given different times and different dates across the country, and people can communicate about it. The American Board of Surgery looks for this. So you got to be very careful to do your best on the test, play it straight, just be your routine selves, which is honest, well-studied, and prepared. Because the American Board of, and this is just the right thing to do, but the American Board of Surgery also looks for testing irregularities. It'll look for people communicating about the test or test content across the country, especially across time zones and things like that. So it's given in January, but you typically receive your results as early as February, but usually almost always by March, unless there's some issue. Next slide, please. So it turns out the ABSITE is not required for eventual board certification. There's no requirement for it. But I've never seen or heard of a program that doesn't use the ABSITE every year. It turns out your residency actually has to pay for the ABSITE from the ABS, American Board of Surgery, and then it has to make sure the testing conditions are okay and everybody has what they need to give the test, to get the test appropriately. Now, if there's ever a problem or you have a concern about your test score, the ABS will not send you any information about your score directly. It can only come from your program. So your program, again, shares your score in March or later. Next slide. Like we said, the ABS looks for certain testing irregularities. So screen left has a shot of a gambler. Don't gamble with the test. If the ABS feels like something's amiss, they're going to request your program director look into it as best as he or she can. Your program director will choose disciplinary findings based on what he or she finds out, and your program can be severely penalized by the ABS. So you really can't share questions from the ABSITE with anyone without violating the ABS ethics and professionalism policy. Now, in these first few talks, you'll see some links. You unfortunately can't copy and paste them because of the issues with the platform. But you can we set up these link shorteners for you. You can type that into your browser under a separate tab if you open a separate tab. And we have prepped for you this information page all about the ABSITE. And that'll take you to the ABS info page on the ABSITE. You'll see these similar shortened links throughout some of the talks here. We kind of did the homework for you as a kind of a value add bonus for you being here. So if you put that link in, you'll see the ABS info page about the ABSITE. If that link is broken for some reason now, just let us know, shoot us an email. We'll give you the email address during the course. Sometimes the links change and the web page changes. If that happens, we'll adjust it. But we share that with you because it's a good idea to look before you just start studying facts. This will tell you what portion of the test comes from each side, each part, each content area, and it'll kind of give you a sense of how the test is weighted. Like we said, when the web pages eventually move or change location, we'll update the links. Just tell us. Now, the way the AirMeet platform works, if you're on that one with us, if you're on Facebook, Airstream, or one of the others, we'll give you the email address to give us questions. But when you have questions, if you're in the primary platform with us, AirMeet, you'll see on the right side of your screen this Q&A button. You can push that, and you'll be able to send me questions. We ask that you hold your questions usually for the end of our talks. By doing that, we'll be able to get through everything, get through the questions that come with almost all the talks, and then we'll be able to get to your questions. So if you have them, go ahead and forward them in there. We'll take a look at the end. We'll get all your questions answered. Next slide. So that's a link directly to the content sheet from the ABS for the ABSITE. It shares important facts about it. Again, the ABSITE follows what the ABS curriculum is, and that's SCORE. SCORE curriculum is excellent. It's the Surgical Council on Resident Education, SCORE. It's put out in, to large degree by the same group that kind of in academic circles helps determine what's important for content for surgical residencies. The issue is that is a content given over 5 years. If you're starting off as a first year, well, you don't have kind of those basics. Second year, you don't. Third year, you don't. You won't have seen all of that. And that's part of why a good review course is so useful. No one review book or course is exhaustive, but because that content's given over 5 years, it's often important to study for your ABSITE to do the best you can with one of those, review tools of some kind. 80% of the ABSITE focuses on clinical management, and about 20% is applied science. We used to call them sort of basic science topics. The classic one-off factoids that we'll be talking about. Glutamine is the preferred fuel of the small bowel enterocyte. Butyrate's the preferred fuel of the colonocyte. These kind of fast facts are now about 20% of the test. And about 72% of the questions concern score patient care topics, about 24 are medical knowledge, and 4% are other topics. So we're going to make sure we hit a lot of clinical stuff as we go through here. The content even shares specific categories and how much they're focused on. So there's that on the lower left. That's the link, ABS, Absite content. So it's bit.ly, Absite content. You can go there and you can see exactly how that's broken up amidst all the categories. So that'll be there for you when you take a look, maybe between sessions or when you go back to look at this video. That's the content sheet to kind of steer you in the right direction. Hard when we're this close to the ABSITE, when you have a couple weeks left. And that's why a highlight course like this is useful. But as you start to plan for next year, that's certainly a useful tool to kind of say, this is how I want to study for this exam. Next slide. Now, once you've looked at that previous link and all the info, including how things are weighted, check this link out on the SCORE curriculum, bit.ly, ABS outline. And when you've done that, you've done a lot of work, and we did a lot of homework for you, but you'll understand what the ABSITE is, what it covers, how it's weighted, and what each content area means. Eventually, your program is going to give you a score report. And one of the things about the ABSITE is it's typically a very narrow curve. There's not a lot of difference between people who score in lower percentages and higher ones. It's only a few questions that gets you there. And that tells you something about how smart and tightly grouped the group is that takes the test, and also tells you something about the difficulty of the test and performance on it. I say this because each content area and what it means is important for when you get that score report back. It'll have these things that you can improve on, and you look at it, and sometimes you say, well, I'm not really even sure what that content area means. Well, this ABS outline sort of helps explain that. So when you get your score report, you can look at it and say, oh, now I know what I need to look at, or what didn't go so well this year. Next slide.
The ABSITE Smackdown podcast is based on the best-selling review book, ABSITE Smackdown, the only ABSITE review with an entire video review course included. Visit ABSITESmackdown.com and pick it up today.
So now that you know how the test looks, what's covered, how long the test typically is, our top tip is that review books are great, whether that's ABSITE Smackdown, the ABSITE Review, the Behind the Knife one. There are many good books, and you're probably using several of them now. They're important when you don't have the time or ability to review the complete book or work, but there is nothing that substitutes for spreading stuff out throughout the year. Now, look, if you haven't done that, if you're behind, if it's your first year, hey, we're here to help. That's what this is. We're going to get you up to speed over the next 3 or 4 days as best we possibly can. And you have access to the full video reviews when you need more, you want to go deeper. And of course, there's all the social media feeds that you have access to throughout the year. So we're setting you up for success long-term. We're kind of using this highlight or boot camp reel to get you where you need to go over the next 3 days to get you to a good place, or if you're in a good place, an even better place. Before we get into the specifics about what's tested, it's really worthwhile to get to know how the test interface works. If you haven't seen this before, the online interface, it's in some ways very simple, but it's important to know what everything means to get you familiar with it ahead of time. It'll make your life a lot better. There's a practice interface for you from the ABS, and we put that at this link for you, ABSITE Practice. Another bit.ly link. So you can go there and click that and get a feel for how this interface works on the computer and what you can do with it. Again, if any of these links have timed out or are different, let us know. Shoot us a question. And if you're on Facebook, Airstream, or one of the other 3 or 4 venues where this is being broadcast, we're going to give you this email address. And I'll give it to you now for the first time. It's info@thehealthcarelab.org. That goes to the producers and publishers, and we have a team that kind of sifts through your questions. So if you do find that these links aren't doing it for you or they're broken somehow, info@thehealthcarelab.org. You can shoot your questions there. We'll be going through them over the next 3 days if there are any additional ones. And let us know if there's a link that's broken or just not working. Now, the issue is that review books and courses like this one don't substitute completely for the SCORE curriculum. We're not here to do that or to even be in the same ball game as SCORE. It's more comprehensive, it's more in-depth, etc. But again, it's over 5 years. And working and studying over time is better for long-term retention. We all know it. But the key here is getting up to speed quickly for the ABSITE, being able to have you demonstrate strong knowledge in this and pick up some things to help performance and get you all the content you need. That's what we're here for. So now let's get some facts in our next talk about whether the ABSITE predicts eventual success on passing your board exam. This came up a lot, comes up for program directors. So it's something I used to think about when I ran a program. How does the ABSITE relate to predicting whether people will pass boards? Next slide. So here's the summary of this talk before we get on to the next one. We're doing pretty well on time. As I said before, remember, you're going to get out of this meeting. We're going to take your questions as we wrap up, and then you're going to be back in the schedule or main page. You have some time before our next talk starts up, and go ahead and use that. Explore the resources that are out there. Again, at daily.absite.fact, and we'll show some of the others. There's even a TikTok. It's the ABSITE Smackdown, and use your time while you're here with us studying for your ABSITE and the conference to set yourself up for success in the future. And go ahead and look at the YouTube video podcast, all the different things that are out there to help you long-term, both this year and beyond. The summary of this talk is straightforward. The ABSITE is one test version now. You probably knew that. You may not have even known that for a while they were actually giving 2 tests. It's administered by each program as a single 5-hour block. You'll have 5 hours, and that's typically in January. It's about 250 multiple choice questions. Sometimes some are testing or evaluation questions, ones that won't be scored. It's really hard to tell which one those are. Don't try to guess, obviously, just do them. Don't cheat on the test. Obviously something that we shouldn't have to say, but I say it so that you know the downside for people or colleagues who are considering, or if it ever comes up in conversation for you, it would prevent the test from functioning for what it's supposed to do as an indicator of what you know. And it also may give your program a host of problems. In the next talk, we're actually going to discuss some of the interesting facts real briefly about what the ABSITE was originally intended to do. It wasn't originally intended to exactly figure out what you know and don't know, or used as a promotion criterion for whether you go on to the next level. It's really, many say, still not supposed to be used as a promotion criteria. We'll get into it more, but originally it was intended to kind of be a referendum on what kind of educational program, how high quality of an educational program your residency had. We'll get to that more in the next talk. Remember, the ABSITE follows the SCORE curriculum, and review books like this one don't substitute for things like the full SCORE curriculum. The ABSITE Smackdown, the ABSITE Review, Behind the Knife podcast companion, ABSITE Slayer, written by a good friend and colleague. None of these substitute for the full SCORE curriculum. ABSITE Smackdown tries to make sure in your daily routine you get facts that are useful, and kind of tries to blend in a seamless way review all year long. Every book is a little bit different in intent. Of course, video anytime, anywhere with no need to travel is one of the differentiating things among the different books. That's part of what the publishers at ABSITE Smackdown are going for. But whatever review book you choose to utilize, nothing substitutes for the full SCORE curriculum. It's just that that's given over 5 years. You'll need some earlier review typically to perform well on the ABSITE. So ABSITE Smackdown will help you, but again, it won't substitute for working consistently over time to master the surgical content. But now that we're in the 11th hour for the ABSITE, we may understand that, but we need to just get to it. We need to get to the facts, get things done, do some questions, and perform the best we can. Over the next 3 days, we're going to be doing everything to get you there. These links are useful to teach you what content will be tested, how it lines up with score, and specifics about what score for each section includes, and also how the computer testing interface looks and feels. So here are those 4 bit.ly links: Absite Info, Absite Content, ABS Outline, and Absite Practice. Each of those will do something unique for you and useful. Again, to get a sense of that computer interface, that last one is certainly useful. Next slide. Next slide. So for more info, again, at daily.absite.fact. I'm really proud to say that the Project Smackdown team makes most of its content to give away for free. And that by being here with the team or by purchasing the book and video review course, you guys have gone a long way to supporting what is great for your colleagues and kind of giving back to the surgical community. That's why so much of it is free. And here's some of the places to get that to blend into your daily routine: at daily.absite.fact, Facebook at Absite Smackdown, Twitter at Absite Smackdown, LinkedIn at Absite Smackdown. Of course, on YouTube, there's the Absite Smackdown channel, and the Absite Smackdown podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, really all over. I also want to share with you that there's a TikTok. That's a new one on me. TikTok is the Absite Smackdown. And that'll keep you up to date. Again, if there are tech issues during this conference, usually that will come out on the Instagram page. We haven't had any in the practice sessions, but heck, you never know. So with that, next slide, please. With that, we're going to be all done with this session, and we're going to move on to the next. But before we do, let me go ahead and take your questions. Let's go back one slide and leave it on the social media one to remind you how to use your time between sessions if you choose to. I'll look over at the question section. Do you have any questions about this session, about the particulars about the Absite, how many questions, what the content is, even some score report stuff? Well, I see none listed. And if you're on another platform, Facebook, Airstream, any of the others, remember info@thehealthcarelab.org. What we'll do is cull those questions as they come in. We'll go through them all, and then we'll go ahead and answer them in one of the future sessions. So now you can use your time between sessions to kind of mull around. This sort of functions like a in-person conference. There are different little rooms and booths that you guys can go into. And then we'll see you for the next one according to the schedule. So for now, let's be all done with this one, and let's get to the next one.
The Absite Smackdown podcast now has a live review. Get your access for the only review conference that works best with your schedule. On call, can't travel, no time for an expensive hotel room or plane ticket? We've got you covered. Visit AbsiteSmackdown.com and select latest news to learn more and sign up today.
John Havorka has a question. It just came in on my screen, so I'm back. Dr. Havorka asks, will Absite questions from last year show up on this year? Typically, no. There's basically a bank of questions, and this is my understanding, having not directly formulated the Absite, but my colleagues who have contributed questions tell me there's like a big bank in the sky of questions that get validated, and they get pulled from every year. There are typically not questions that repeat, although there is seemingly a tendency to kind of test the same things. There are only so many review books and only so many facts. So it's almost like a probability thing. Did you study enough breadth and scope? Do you understand the questions correctly? And then you can narrow down. You'll start to see kind of repeat things touched on. That was my experience as a resident. But in terms of the same question being recycled from one year to the next, there are so many questions that's my understanding is that's pretty unlikely. That also matches my experience. Dr. Havorka, thanks for the question. Any other questions before we end up the meeting? All right. Well, with that, like we said, let's get out of this conference room and let's get to the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Absite Smackdown podcast. Visit us at absitesmackdown.com for more great Absite facts.